limitations on the number of people that may gather in one place, this meeting of the Northborough School Committee meeting will be conducted via remote participation to the greatest extent possible. Specific information and the general guidelines for remote participation by members of the public and/or parties with a right and/or requirement to attend the meeting can be found on the district website. For this meeting, members of the public who wish to listen or watch the meeting may also do so in the following manner: live streaming, educational channel, Verizon channel 29, Charter channel 194. No in-person attendance of members of the public will be permitted. Every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings in real time via technological means. In the event that we are unable to do so despite best efforts, we will post on the district website an audio or video recording, transcript, or other comprehensive record of proceedings as soon as possible after the meeting. And with that said, I'd like to call the Northborough School Committee meeting of Wednesday, June 2nd, 21 into order, and it is 6:31. And at this point in time, I would like to just kind of review the process. So as the chair of the committee for this meeting, we'll be electing officers. First, the committee will elect a chair. Once a chair is elected, the new chair will elect a secretary and vice chair, and then also will elect 2 members to the superintendency union number 3. So at this time, I'd like to ask committee members if there are any motions for a chairperson of the Northborough School Committee for the 21-22 school year.
Would it be a good idea to have a conversation first about willingness to serve as chair, or would you like a motion first, Greg?
No, I think a conversation is fine, Lauren, and then someone can make a motion. So
is that directed at me?
So first, I guess the first question is who would like to, who's willing to serve as the chair is the first question. Who's interested?
I'm not raising my hand to volunteer. I'd like to make a statement. It's been quite a journey this year, serving as chair. Obviously, a lot of extra time and fairly difficult at times. And in light of work and personal circumstances, I would actually prefer to not be an officer. Certainly not chair if possible. So there's 4 other very capable members on the committee, and I would prefer to give somebody else a turn for this year. I think we're leaving things in a better spot, and I think the worst is behind us. That's my preference.
I didn't know if there was any of the other members, Lauren, Kelly, or Aaron, that wanted to serve in that capacity. I'd like to first thank Keith for his wonderful year of leadership. It's been a long, hard, but very rewarding year, and you have done a great job in bringing us forward and making some changes and putting a stamp on our agenda and also on the policy. So I'd like to thank you, Keith, for all your effort. I know that the chairpersonship should be something that is shared by all of us, and I'm finishing my reign as the regional chair. So I would step up into that role, but I would also think that it's also good for if Lauren, Kelly, or Aaron want to serve in that capacity.
I guess I could jump in. So having served on the committee for 3 years, and then Kelly and I were recently reelected, I feel like I do have the now knowledge of how the committee works to chair. I think I chaired 1 or 2 meetings this year. I do have some life circumstances happening this summer where I will become a parent. So there is that consideration. So if someone else was willing to step up as chair, I would fully support them. I think that all of us have enough working knowledge and leadership skills to do that job. However, it's the will of the committee to, motion. I would just want it to be known that the first few meetings of the academic year, whoever the vice chair would probably have to step up. Thank you.
I would support Lauren if Lauren's willing to do it. I wouldn't mind doing vice chair or secretary again, because I'm such a great secretary, right, Keith?
The best.
I think that, or even if Aaron wanted to do vice chair and Lauren to do chair and secretary, whatever, I think having a vice chair as experience preceding chair makes more sense than to just, even though I feel like I could do it and handle it and I'd be more than willing to jump up to it, I feel like having that little more experience in the vice chair role would make more sense for a transition than to just jump right into it. But I completely understand Lauren's circumstances and, or if Aaron wants to jump full for.
Good.
Okay, so that's all.
I'll
then.
take my steps.
Well, that leaves 3. She said she's good, so.
Lauren, I
That
think you
leaves
do
3
a
of you.
great job. I agree with Kelly, kind of making that progression up the ladder. Keith, you've done an awesome job. I respect you for knowing it's time to step down, but I definitely think, Lauren, you can handle it, and we'll cover you in the beginning. We got you covered. I can make a motion if you'd like, if we're still talking or ready.
So Aaron, just want me to summarize. So we have Lauren, who's willing to serve as the chair, but life circumstances there might be need some support just in terms of the vice chair. Kelly's also willing to be the chair, but would prefer to be the vice chair if granted the opportunity. And Aaron, at this point in time, is not interested. Is that accurate, Aaron?
Correct. I think there's people that have definitely had more experience than I have, and I haven't even been to a real live in-person meeting yet. So,
and then Joan
I
is
think
willing.
they precede me.
And then Joan is willing to chair, vice chair, whatever the committee is needs, and we'll support others in their leadership roles as well.
Oh yes, I didn't mean to minimize Joan too. That when I was supporting Lauren, I don't want you to think, Joan, that I don't want you to.
Oh, I never would think that. So no. I think
Okay.
I think that it is always something. I think it's a growth experience. I've been chairpersons many times, so I think it's a good experience. It really is, and you learn a lot on it. So, with Lauren being education, she knows we are educators and everyone at the table tonight, and you never stop learning, no matter what part of your life you're in.
Well said.
All right, Aaron, you want to make your motion?
Am I just motioning for Lauren to be chair?
Correct.
One at a time, yeah.
So I can make a motion for Lauren Bailey Jones to be chair of the Northborough School Committee, K to 8 for the 2021-2022 school year.
Second.
Annette, second. Oh.
Any further discussion?
I'd like to just echo my colleagues in that I've had a great collaboration with Lauren as vice chair. She's been a fantastic sounding board, and certainly have full faith in her ability to step up into the role. And also agree with Aaron that we can. I don't know who will be the vice chair, but we can definitely make sure things are. You've got good backup and coverage to, do what you need to do in the fall as you get things settled if need be, and we'll take care of things, and it'll be there waiting for you when you're ready.
All right, so the motion on the table is to elect Lauren Bailey Jones as the chair of the Northborough School Committee for 21-22. We'll take a roll call vote, starting with Joan Frank,
Yes.
Keith LaBelle,
Yes.
Aaron,
Yes.
Kelly,
Yes.
and Lauren.
Yes.
All right, so I gladly turn over the virtual gavel to our new chairperson, Lauren Bailey-Jones. Congratulations, Lauren. And
Thank you.
I also just want to take a minute and thank Keith LaBelle and Lauren for their work as chair and vice chair this year. I think being the chair of a school committee is a difficult job in a normal year, but leading a school committee and an organization in a pandemic is even more challenging. And you did it with integrity, patience, and a calm approach. So thank you for that. It's greatly appreciated. And Lauren, I will turn it over to you to nominate, ask for nomination for a vice chair and then a secretary.
Perfect. Thank you, everyone. And again, thank you, Keith, for all your leadership this past year. I've learned a lot from you. We've kept in touch. So thank you so much for all of your leadership. So at this time, we are looking for nominations for vice chair, someone who could help lead the charge. Yes, Keith.
I'd like to nominate Kelly Gannett for vice chair.
All right, we have a nomination.
Second.
A second from Joan Frank. Any discussion? All right, we've already oh, yes, Keith.
It's a natural progression for you, Kelly. You're ready. Though you're a great secretary. So you really are.
Thank you.
The best secretary ever. So we're going to miss you in that role. But I think it's time to take that next stepping stone. So I think I'd be excited to see you do so. Sure.
I would agree with Keith. Kelly, I know we joke about it, but you are a great secretary. Your notes are very thorough. If anyone ever misses a meeting, they know exactly what happened. And I think that this would be a great progression for you as well.
Thank you.
She's actually a court stenographer for her day job.
I watch a lot of court TV shows. I can give you the play-by-play later.
Any other discussion? All right, seeing none, we have a motion on the table, and that's to nominate Kelly Gannett as our vice chair for the 2021-2022 school year. So this is going to be a roll call vote. Mr. LaBelle?
Yes.
Ms. Frank?
Yes.
Ms. Tagliaferri?
Yes.
Ms. Gannett?
Yes.
And myself, Ms. Bailey-Jones, is a yes. So that unanimous. Kelly, you are now vice chair. Congratulations.
Thank you. Don't go into labor early.
So our next position is secretary. So Kelly held that position this year. Just sort of as an overview, typically secretary takes notes mostly during executive session meetings. And it's a very integral role in order for keeping our minutes. Yes, Mr. LaBelle.
I'd like to nominate Mrs. Tagliaferri for secretary.
Second.
Excellent. We have a motion for Erin as secretary and a second. Any discussion? First, Erin, can we turn it over to you?
I'll just need lessons from Kelly.
I have great notes. I can read you back.
And
I'm a nurse.
templates.
I do a lot of shorthand. A lot of abbreviations.
In all seriousness, though, we did a lot of work with doing a better job at documenting the templates and the role. It's been kind of sometimes a gray role, and the training's been a bit informal. So I think a good handoff would be very, very helpful.
Yes.
All right. Any further discussion? All right. We have a motion and a second for Erin Tagliaferri as secretary. This is going to be a roll call vote. Mr. LaBelle?
Yes.
Mrs. Frank?
Yes.
Mrs. Gannett?
Yes.
Mrs. Tagliaferri?
Yes.
And myself, Lauren Bailey-Jones, is a yes. So that passes unanimously. Excellent. Congratulations, Erin.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
My pen is done.
I'll see you this summer, Kelly.
So we do have one more item of business before we move on from this, and that is to nominate our superintendency union members. So traditionally, the chair does serve as a union member, but we do need one additional representative. Yes, Joan.
We'll need two. There are 3 members that serve from Northborough and 3 from Southborough. So I'd like to nominate Keith LaBelle and myself to be the other 2 union members.
Awesome. Thank you for that clarification. Any second?
I'll second that.
Excellent. And Joan, I know you have served in that role in the past. And Keith, you also have as well. So great. You bring a lot of knowledge to that. So thank you. Any further discussion? All right. This will be a roll call vote. We are voting on nominating Ms. Frank and Mr. LaBelle as our union representatives for Northborough. We're going to start with Mrs. Gannett.
Yes.
Mrs. Tagliaferri.
Yes.
Mrs. Frank.
Yes.
And Mr. LaBelle.
Yes.
Excellent. Congratulations. Thank you. That was unanimously passed. We're going to move on to our next order of business, and that is to honor the retirees of our district this year. So I'm going to pass it on to Mr. Martineau.
So thank you very much, and congratulations to the school committee members for their elected seats. So this evening, it's a pleasure to honor our Northborough retirees. Combined, our retirees this year have over 176 years of experience serving the public schools of Northborough, and they leave behind very difficult shoes to fill. When you lose 176 years of experience, it takes time to build that back. So this evening, I would like to acknowledge several of our retirees who are with us, and typically we would invite them to an in-person school committee meeting, but I would imagine probably they prefer the Zoom meeting so they can sit comfortably in their homes and be recognized. So first retiree, Northborough, is Eileen Badstubner, and she is retiring as a grade 1 teacher at Z Elementary School. And she began her career in Northborough in 2004. She brought to us a degree in business from Boston University and a graduate degree from Wheelock College in elementary education. And I also noticed that she was a teacher before coming to us at Laurel Street School in Shrewsbury, half a year in grade 2 and half a year in grade 4. And she also, little known fact, this is probably not well known and probably she might not be happy I'm sharing this, but she was a Walt Disney character at one point. Is that accurate?
True. That is true.
No, but I think, so Eileen brings a great care for our students. She's been an amazing faculty member and team member at Z School. She is extremely dedicated to the students, willing to do whatever it takes. And she'll be sorely missed. But we wish Eileen well in her future endeavors. And I believe before you leave, Eileen, if you can just reach out to Heather and get a substitute application, that'd be greatly appreciated.
I'm actually going to tutor next year.
Oh, perfect. That's even better.
Yeah, I think it's the right time for me. My daughter's actually graduating. My youngest will be graduating from nursing school next year. So I said, why wait a year? Now's the time.
Well, congratulations, and you will be sorely missed.
Thank you.
And just before I continue on with our retirees, so we did drop off gifts. We pre-planned this, so we have gifts waiting for you tomorrow morning in the main office. Typically, we would provide those gifts in person, but this will just be an equal surprise, another reason to wake up tomorrow morning and rush to school.
Thank you.
So our next retiree is Mark Goffrey. Mark began work at the Melkin Middle School in 2007. He is a graduate from UMass Amherst, Tulane University, and Cambridge College. He's very well educated. He did teach business, taught grade 9 science, at Burlington High School in Massachusetts. And before that, he was a high-tech project manager, document manager, and brought to us a lot of corporate experience to his work. Mark is a staunch advocate for exciting students about science. He has done some amazing work with our students. One particular project that comes to mind is his work around PTC, and it was a PD course that he took with his colleagues, and he brought that work back and created an integrated project with windmills, and he worked with a tech ed teacher and some other content area teachers and really developed an amazing experience for our students. Mark is truly dedicated to our students. He has been the photography club advisor for many years, and he has been a curriculum leader. He's been an Atlas ambassador. And if you ever have had a chance to talk with Mark, ask him about some of his summer vacations. You will thoroughly be jealous. He has some amazing trips and adventures that he brings back and shares with his students. And, so Mark, congratulations. You'll be sorely missed, and thank you for your years of service at Melican Middle School. All right, next we have Christine Hall. So Christine Hall is retiring as an art teacher from the Proctor, and she also was an art teacher at Z School. She began her work in 1985, so I had to kind of do a double take and look at all the years of service. And I think Mr. Dennis DeSalvo was part of that, your hiring process in 1985. And you've seen many superintendents along your journey, probably many principals. She has her art education and art therapy degree from Anna Maria College. And this is a little known fact, her first starting salary in 1985 was $16,286. So she's done amazing work as an art teacher. She, as you walk the building, her work with students is visible. She's very passionate about art and has truly been a great asset to the public schools of Northborough and will be thoroughly missed. So congratulations, Christine, and hopefully you can take your art passion, your art therapy and put it to good use in retirement. Next, we have Laurie Miller. So Laurie Miller is a graduate from Lesley University and Framingham State and SUNY in New York. And I did not realize this. She has a broadcasting and political science degree. She's extremely talented. She's retiring as an ELL teacher at Proctor School. And she has been working since 2006 as a teacher and an ELL teacher. She is extremely passionate about her work and is a staunch advocate for the students and her colleagues. She always has a smile on her face and looks at the positive, can find the positive in any difficult situation. And she is going to be a very difficult person to replace at Proctor School. She brings so much to the climate and culture of the building. And Alana has a big job ahead of her to try to find a replacement. But Laurie, thank you for your years of service and all that you've done for our students. It's greatly appreciated. So our next retiree is Sylvia Frieza. She actually came to us in 2000. So it's a little over 2 decades. And she brought to us a wealth of experience. She was a reading specialist, social studies teacher, and she joined us as a reading specialist at Proctor School and has done amazing work. She is a graduate of Columbia University. She has her degrees in psychology and reading, University of Michigan graduate. She also taught at Shrewsbury. And she's been an active and contributing member of the curriculum leadership teams, and she's been instrumental in leading English language arts, I would say pre-K through 12 in our 3 districts. She is a true leader. She has made a difference not only in Northborough, but also Southborough. She's another positive voice, extremely bright, a great thinker, and a hard worker. And I think she is one of those wise members of our school community that will be almost impossible to replace as she begins her next endeavor in her retirement. And again, all of our retirees are welcome back in any capacity, tutoring, substituting, consultant work. So congratulations, Sylvia. So next we have Karen Rose. She was a special education teacher at Milliken Middle School. She began her journey with us in 2013. And prior to that, she worked for the Belmont Public Schools and Westborough Public Schools. And that is when, in 2013, she joined Northborough Public Schools. She is also well educated. She has her degree from St. A's College, a master's from Simmons. She is a special ed teacher. She has her BCBA and really brought a lot of skill and expertise to Milliken Middle School. She has been an advocate for our students, for all students. She has served as on the board of directors for Council for Exceptional Children. And she's extremely dedicated, extremely professional, and well respected throughout our Northborough Learning Organization. So congratulations, Karen Rose. You'll be deeply missed at Milliken. So not with us this evening is our next retiree. It's Jane Scotland, who is the school nurse at Lincoln Street School. She has been with us since 2007, and she brought to her work in our district a wealth of experience. She was a triage nurse. She worked at Brigham's Women's Hospital. She worked in cardiology. Her specialties were medical and surgical and orthopedic. And she brought, most importantly, a deep care and compassion for students in her work with kids. She is the heart of Lincoln Street School. She is a person that students and faculty and staff go to for care. And she, again, is student-centered and leaves difficult shoes to fill as she enters her years of retirement. So again, she can't be with us this evening, but I just want to congratulate Jane Scotland. Also this evening is Carolyn Mackey, Connie Mackey. She is an ESP at Z School. She has been with us for a little over 2 decades and began her work in 2000, which seems so long ago. She attended Fordham University, and I think she began her work as a volunteer. She was an enrichment coordinator. She is a PTO president, and she has really dedicated the past 2 decades serving our youngest learners at Z School. She is caring, kind, and really willing to do whatever it takes for all of our students. So again, I want to wish Connie well in her retirement. And then lastly, we have Diane Thompson. So Diane Thompson has worked in our school system since 1991. She has been the cafeteria manager at Proctor School. And as we always talk about, every role in our school system is equally important. And the cafeteria managers play a very special role. They get to interact with our students each and every day and really can make a difference in a student's life. Prior to coming to Proctor School, she worked for Paul Revere Life Insurance. Her colleagues describe her as caring, kind, and respectful. And she'll be sorely missed. She's done some amazing things. She was the coordinator of the senior citizen lunch and really took extra special care, making sure there was a special lunch, tea, coffee, and desserts. And also she helped with the Superintendent's Awards Night. And she also volunteered to serve on the interview committee for Northborough and Southborough for hiring of a band teacher. So she was multifaceted in her contributions to our learning organization. So again, I want to wish Diane Thompson well. So in summary, again, 176 years of experience combined between all of our retirees this evening. They're irreplaceable, but they have earned and deserve their, what I'm calling their encore career. So their next chapter, whatever that might be. And I hope that it brings you health, happiness, and much joy. So congratulations.
Congratulations to all the retirees. We certainly appreciate all your service to our school district. The words that are, I'm sorry, I apologize. The words that our students say about you is just remarkable. So speaking to any student in the Northborough Public Schools, they talk about their teachers and how they changed their lives. So just know that you guys have changed students' lives, regardless of what position you have held in our district. So thank you so much. We're going to miss you a lot. And I hope that despite our pandemic, you are able to celebrate with your buildings in a proper fashion. Thank you so much. Any other comments from committee members? Yes, Joan?
I'd like to echo the same sentiments that Chairman Lauren Bailey Jones has just expressed, and to let all of the retirees that are here tonight and the ones that can attend, that you've left an indelible mark on all the children of Northborough, and I think even some of the ones in Southborough. I'd like to thank you for your dedication and time. And as I look out at your smiling faces, I see good friends, best friends. I see even a teacher out there who is almost like a mentor to me into the same area of being a reading specialist. So Sylvia, thank you very much. And I know that all of you have touched these children's lives, and just when it's not even over, because as these kids grow up and you go out into around in Westborough, Northborough, Southborough, you'll go into a food store, you'll go into Marshall's, and all of a sudden someone's going to yell out your name, and it'll be a former student, and you'll go and you'll talk to them, and you'll just leave that situation. You'll say, wow, I really, really loved what I did, and I knew that I helped this student in some way. So your education is not over. I'm glad to hear that Superintendent Martineau also said that you're welcome back as a consultant, because I can see so many consultants there, and as substitutes, and because we value everything that you have, and you have so much more wisdom and learning to give back to all the students. So thank you to all of you. We really, really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Joan. Erin.
I just want to thank everybody as well. And I echo what Joan said, and I can speak to what she said, that Mrs. Hall, you were actually my art teacher. So we remember you, although you probably don't remember me because I was a terrible artist. So I probably didn't stand out in the class. I was probably dancing in the back. But thank you all so much. We're so fortunate to have such great educators and staff in our district, and we really appreciate it.
Thank you all so much for being here. And again, I wish that we could celebrate in person, but hopefully you'll be able to celebrate at your respective buildings. So thank you all one more time. We really appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
And you're more than welcome to stay for the entire meeting, but that's completely up to you. When you're retiring, you get to make choices like this of what to do with your time. So congratulations, and thank you for attending this evening.
Yes, thank you for attending. Take care, everyone. All right, we're going to move on to our next order of business. And so we are actually going to move into executive session. And so we do have language written to move into executive session. Would anyone like to make a motion on that tonight?
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I'd like to make the motion that we move into executive session to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining due to the chair's determination that a discussion regarding this matter in an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the position of the committee, with the intent to return to open meeting.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second to move into executive session to discuss collective bargaining with the intent to return to open session.
Lauren, do you know roughly how long it's going to be? I'm just wondering for people who are in attendance or people who want to sign back on after, since we are going to return.
That's a great question. I'm sure Greg and Keith maybe had discussed this a bit.
So, Lauren, we can expect 15 minutes, so we can give, Stephanie will stay on to the webinar, and I'll text her at 15 minutes to let her know how much longer we can anticipate being in executive session. I would say no more than, and again, but I can't predict, no more than a half hour.
Okay. Thank you, Kelly, for that. So
thank you.
For those who are watching, we will keep the webinar open. However, we will be leaving the webinar and we will return hopefully within 15 to 30 minutes. So at this time, we need to do a roll call vote before we leave. So I'm going to start with Ms. Frank.
Yes.
Mrs. Gannett.
Yes.
Mr. LaBelle.
Yes.
Ms. Tagliaferri.
Yes.
And myself, Lauren Bailey Jones, is a yes. So that's unanimous. We're going to move into executive session now at 7:06, and we will see you soon. So we were going to
We're
continue.
still. Oh, sorry. Do we have Greg back? Oh, he's there.
Yeah.
He moved. Couldn't find you on that side.
And let me just make sure we have all returned. 1, 2, 3. Yes, we have all returned. Perfect. Great. So now that we're back from executive session, we're going to move on to our first official order of business, which is audience sharing. So at this time, does anyone in our audience have anything they'd like to share with us tonight? If so, please raise your virtual hand. We have one attendee. All right, it looks like at this moment, our attendee does not wish to share at this time. So we're going to move on to our next order of business, which is new business, which is legislative update. So I'm going to turn this over to Mr. Martineau.
Sure. So just a very brief update. Although the Northborough pre-K through 8 budget has been passed, we do keep an eye on the state budget process. We just learned that the state Senate has adopted the FY22 budget, and now the House and Senate are convening the conference committee to reconcile differences. I think the projections that Becky and her team used to create the FY22 budget are spot on. And I think we're in a great place at this point in time. And I think, and Becky, correct me if I'm wrong, we're hearing that the budget most likely will be finalized sometime early this fall at the earliest.
That's correct. I know they want to move this forward quickly.
So all good news from the state budget front at this time. And that is the legislative update for this evening.
Thank you. Our second piece of new business is a COVID-19 update.
Sure. So a lot of new information has been released by the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. All good news, and from our standpoint, it did share some guidance around what the fall reopening will look like, and it did indicate that this fall there will be no social distancing requirements. It also shared that we'll be working with the Department of Public Health to determine what, if any, COVID-19 mitigation requirements will be in place. So we are trying to get a better sense of what it will mean, but I think the lifting of social distancing is an important milestone. And also, we also learned that districts will not be allowed to create remote programs. So learning will be 100% in person next year. So, which is a good news moving forward. And I will turn it over to Mary Ellen just to give a brief update, and then also Stephanie will provide an update on some accelerated learning program funding that Northborough did receive. So Mary Ellen.
Sure. Hi, everybody. COVID-19, there's been a lot of changes since the last time we were together. Some of the biggest changes were that students don't need to wear masks outside during recess or classrooms that are outside or PE, which everybody is happy about. And now the latest update, the staff don't need to do it either. So that makes even more sense now. But so that is our biggest changes. They can share materials in school, and we are looking forward to getting ready for next year and being a little bit more back to normal. Our numbers are really low. We're following the state, the town, the schools. We've just had very few cases for the past few weeks. All of our pools have been negative since April vacation. And we send off about 2,500 tests a week. So that's great news for us. Greg, can I share my screen for a minute? So this is our last, thank you, our last meeting. I just need to, thinking back to where we were when we started last year, maybe. This is just giving you a little bit of an update of what the numbers look like for Northborough Nursing by the numbers. So this year, even though we've only had very few full 100% in-person days, our nurses have seen 60 357 students, and you can see that comparatively for the prior 2 years, what it was, where last year we were in school for about 2/3 of the time, full in person, and then remote for the other third. They've administered 1,777 medications, medical procedures, 1,138, and they have done 15,190 COVID screenings. So that is nursing by the numbers. So this is just the Northborough too. This does not include the regional or Southborough. So that's how many screenings they've done. So they have had a busy year. So when we look back to what the nurses did for this whole year, we started off, we were riding the school buses and delivering technology and food throughout the spring and the summer. They checked in with students while everybody else was all safer at home. They were out doing it, checking in on students and families. They created health education resources and videos. They reassured anxious staff, students, and parents. They administered flu vaccines in the fall and winter and COVID-19 vaccines this spring. They created all kinds of tracking forms for symptoms, travel, and close contacts. They interviewed countless people while contact tracing, and they performed weekly COVID-19 screening for staff and students. We can never thank them enough because they did all of this in addition to their everyday school nurse responsibilities, which you just saw the numbers of making a positive difference for children every day by meeting the physical and mental health needs of all of our students and supporting their academic success by helping students stay healthy in school and ready to learn. So our nurses have been our unsung heroes all year. They've just gone above and beyond. And while I'm thanking them, I could never let it go by a meeting without thanking our medical advisory team. So if you see any of these people in your travels, please give them a huge thank you, because we would not have made it through this year or be where we are without them and their expertise and support. So that's my update. And if anybody, I'll take any questions if anybody has any.
Thank you so much, Mary Ellen. Kelly, yes.
Thanks, Lauren. Thanks, Mary Ellen. I mean, it goes without saying all that you guys have done all year, and you've done an amazing job. You've done an amazing job as a leader for all your nurses. Your nurses have done an amazing job. And, you know, just seeing that kids are back full time and, you know, with everything, it's amazing. My only thing is why, and you might not know this, whatever, but if the elementary kids aren't vaccinated, why did they feel like that they could just remove the restrictions and the masks and all that? That's what was confusing me about it. It was like, I understand like the higher grades and stuff with all the vaccinations, but I mean, our teachers have been vaccinated the majority of the year. So it's kind of weird that, you know, now.
So I think what all of the research is showing is that the transmission that happens outdoors has been minimal. Okay. So if there has been any, so that's why they're saying that outdoors is okay. Indoors, they still mask. Elementary schools will probably be masked indoors even next year, beginning of next year, is what I would look towards for elementary school.
That makes more sense then. All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions or comments for Mary Ellen? Yes, Joan.
Mary Ellen, thank you so very much for this year and your wisdom and your knowledge and educating all of us. I mean, it has been a hard year. And I think even thanking the medical staff for the endless number of hours. I'm sure you were called along with Greg and probably even with Stephanie in the middle of the night when there was a transmission or there was a tracing that had to take place. You were on call 24/7. So I'd like to thank you because I think that where we are today with our districts and where we have been, you have provided a safe ground for teachers willing to come back and all educators to come in the building, feel safe and be reassured because you listened to their answers. You worked from the bottom up, not from the top down, and you listened to their concerns and you guided them in the right direction. So thank you very much for your leadership. I really, really appreciate it on behalf of all the community members because you reached out to everybody. It wasn't just the school community. So for the entire community members of Northborough, I'd like to thank you from the bottom of my heart. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well said, Joan. And definitely, Mary Ellen, please extend our thanks to all the nurses and nursing staff in our schools. They certainly have gone above and beyond this year.
Thank you.
So Lauren, while we're recognizing people, I just want to also take a minute, and although Mary Ellen thanked many others, I think she's been an outstanding leader. She is, it's odd recently when Mary Ellen and I don't talk on an hourly, if not daily basis, which is welcomed. But Mary Ellen has been a true leader. She's been calm. She's kept her sense of humor most days. She has thought about our faculty, staff, and student safety first. She mobilized the team and used the expertise around her. So thank you, Mary Ellen. And I think we all have witnessed her great leadership and are looking forward to her work next year in terms of leading curriculum and health curriculum and students' well-being in a normal year. So, but thank you, Mary Ellen, for all you've done.
Thank you, Greg, but none of us would be here without the team of all of us. You know that.
Excellent. I believe that Stephanie, you also had a COVID-19 update.
I do, thank you. So there has been a lot of talk in mostly political arenas, but about summer acceleration opportunities for students. And just this past week, we actually got specific information from the Department of Education, of Elementary and Secondary Education, about the specific grant opportunities. And it is a very defined type of opportunity that they are funding. It is a 1-week acceleration academy. The goal is to accelerate learning for the students who are most affected by COVID and most need this academic support. With the goal of the goal of the grant was to target about 10% of students. It is specific grade levels. So in the earliest grades, it's for literacy, a 1-week opportunity for literacy intervention. And then in the upper elementary, rising 8th grade and rising 10th grade, it is a math academy. So having just received all this information, we are in the very early phases of figuring out what is possible, everything from staffing to criteria for identifying students, and all of those, specific details. So we are just exploring, determining what's possible, and we'll have lots more information to share in the coming weeks.
Thank you so much, Stephanie. Any questions, comments? All right. Well, that's going to end our COVID-19 update. Hopefully, in the months to come, we will see less and less COVID-19 updates. All right, we're going to move on to our third item of new business, which is our 2021 and 2022 subcommittee and liaison assignments. So in your packets, there is a list of our assignments from this past year. And so I wanted to open it up to conversation and discussion. Are there any wishes to move committees, no longer serve on a committee? I know that one thing that we do need to add is, which I didn't see it on this list, was the liaison to Northborough's Diversity and Inclusion Committee. And I think that's because it began in December after we had created this list. So that is there. I do currently serve as that role, and it is a 1-year task force. It's an ad hoc group. And so that will continue through this November. And I would be willing to serve as liaison again for coherency.
I'm starting top down looking at it. And my question about I remember we were divvying up different things. The collective bargaining subcommittee, was I just as the union or no? I can still do that, right? Right, that wasn't, okay, that's the thing, okay.
You can still do that.
Okay.
So our entire committee is on the collective bargaining subcommittee and you were the chair, correct, Kelly? Okay.
I think that's how it went, yeah.
Okay.
Lauren,
So-
can I just make a general comment? So
Sure.
the key committees that we need, subcommittees that we need to make sure we have identified are the first 4 rows. That's the capital planning, collective bargaining, operational budget subcommittee, and policy development subcommittee. So those are the key committees, and any other committee, you can have some time to think if you wish, and let Cheryl know, and then we could bring this back at one of our early meetings in September if it's the will of the committee.
Great. Thank you so much. Yes, Keith.
I would ask to not be the chair of the operational budget subcommittee. We kind of had a pretty extenuating year, and so I think I inherited that by virtue of being the chair of the whole committee, and we put the whole committee on. And that's my second question, is whether we need to continue to have an entire committee be on operational budget. It seems to be working well overall, and we're a small committee. We work the budget together, but just a general comment.
I found it helpful having us all on it, but I agree. I knew that was something new that we started last year, having us all on it. But I liked that. I like the idea of maybe just who's ever the chair be the chair of the operational, since it's all of us. I think that's what we talked about last year, and that's how we kind of picked the different things. And then we kind of gave everybody else, at least according to my notes. And then we kind of picked chairs. So everybody kind of had a chance to kind of somewhat chair things.
Through the chair. So
Yeah.
My recommendation is to keep operational budget as a subcommittee. However, I think the way we organized this year is if we had a quorum, then we'd post it as a special meeting, and that way everyone was involved. But that would allow us to have the flexibility if only the subcommittee members could attend. We still could move the work forward. And if we did have a quorum, we could post it in a different way so that everyone could participate and attend.
And Lauren, I like the idea of taking a look at these and then submitting the ones that we want to be on to you and to Cheryl, and then Cheryl will help you and then you can pick and see where you need to have members and select the ones that you want to have on that. I know the liaison to the selectman usually goes to the chair, because if there's the liaison to the chair, sometimes if you do attend a selectman's meeting, would have to make a response. And if it is another member, then we always would have to defer to you as the chair.
Okay, that makes sense, Joan. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
There was one thing that came up this year with policy specifically, where we had not elected any alternates officially. And so that is something that we need to do in order to allow other members of our committee to fill a spot to meet quorum. So I guess I just wanted to ask the committee, would you like to elect alternates to the capital planning subcommittee, which has 3 members, Erin, Joan, and Keith currently, and the policy development subcommittee, which has 3 members, which is myself, Keith, and Erin. I think it would logistically make sense to have the other 2 members be alternates.
Yeah, I was going to say, so because we didn't have official alternates, that meant that if the 3 of you couldn't meet, then you had to cancel or reschedule. Is that how it went?
If we couldn't reach quorum,
yeah.
So if maybe only 1 out of 3 of us could make it, which almost happened once this year, we couldn't officially reach quorum because we hadn't technically selected alternates.
Yeah, I think that's fine having the other 2 people that aren't on the committees. I'm in support of that. I know one thing that I do not want to be liaison anymore to is the full day free kindergarten study group. That I'm just wiping my hands. I'm done with it. So I think that will be exciting just to have that all together come off the list. So.
That's an exciting thing to happen, Kelly.
Yeah.
Yes, Keith.
Yeah, just found the part in B320 where it talks about the alternates. So the committee may elect to appoint all or some members as alternates should the designated, just reading word for word here, committee members be unable to attend any posted meeting. Alternates will have voting rights in cases when a designated subcommittee member is not. So certainly provide some backup options. And it's not something we formally did this past year, since it's kind of an option. So it looks like it would be helpful. And I would just like to go back to what Mr. Martineau said. Mr. Martineau, are you concerned about summer subcommittee meetings? And so is there a structural need to finalize this sooner than normal? Is that what we're looking at the moment due to circumstances?
Yeah, so technically the operational budget subcommittee, so approval of payroll and warrants. So we just need to make sure that's assigned. And then later in the agenda, we'll talk about the joint policy work proposal. So that would entail a meeting in August. So those are the two that are probably more critical than others.
I'm fine to continue on payroll. And then I don't know if Lauren wants to replace Keith just because the chair. It's digital. Sure. It's going to stay digital, right? Oh, okay.
Right. So it sounds like just going down that list, capital planning will remain with Erin, Keith, and Joan. Erin is currently the chair of that subcommittee, and our two alternates will be, who are we missing? Kelly and myself. Collective bargaining subcommittee will be the entire committee, and Kelly will serve as chair. Operational budget subcommittee will also be the entire committee, and I will serve as chair. And Kelly, you will serve as the payroll representative. And then policy development subcommittee will be myself, Keith, and Erin. Now, I was chair. Would anyone else like to chair the policy development subcommittee? I'm happy to continue. However, if anyone has, the desire. All right, then I will continue. And then other notes are that we do not need a liaison for free full day kindergarten anymore. To add the liaison for the Northborough Diversity and Inclusion Committee, which I can serve on. And then to take Joan's recommendation, which is to have the chair serve as the liaison to the selectmen. But if there's any other changes to liaisons, whether you'd like to serve as a liaison, we can have up to 2 for each group. Or if you'd like to be taken off, just let us know. We don't officially need a vote for this. So I guess I just want to confirm that everything that anything else that they want to add. And I do see that, Keith, you have something.
Yeah, I just want to make sure I'm understanding about the entire committee being on the operational budget subcommittee. I think I understood that, right, Mr. Martineau? If you can recap that again, I'm not understanding what route we should.
So my recommendation is try to create maximum flexibility. So if you do appoint the subcommittee, that allows, if we can't get a quorum of the committee, the subcommittee could meet and we could go over the budget. But like we did this year, we could also post a special meeting with the entire committee and go over the budget as a larger committee. And that gives us flexibility depending on if we have a quorum or not.
So if I may, to rephrase that, if we have a subcommittee of 3, does that provide more flexibility and we would have alternates?
Yeah, so I think the default will be to hold a special meeting where we discuss the budget as a larger committee. That will be our goal.
Okay.
However, if we can't get a quorum, then we could call the subcommittee into session. We'll have a subcommittee meeting and then go over the budget.
I see. So the differentiation is, in practice, we're going to usually meet as the whole committee because we all agree it's fairly beneficial. However, if we have a subcommittee technically, then that's another option. So in that case, I'm understanding Mrs. Bailey-Jones that we would want to turn this into a subcommittee of 3 on this,
Yes.
even though the practice will be to continue with the entire committee.
Perfect. That does clarify things. Thank you. So, so we're looking for 3 members to serve as the subcommittee for both collective bargaining and operational budget. However, continuing our practice of inviting all members for special meetings. So volunteers for either.
I'll stay on both. I don't mind staying on both.
Okay. So collective bargaining is Kelly. Anyone else for collective bargaining?
Is there any collective bargaining this year, Greg?
There's not that I
Okay.
can.
So Keith wants to be on that committee also.
Okay, Keith, you're going to be on that
Sign me
committee.
up. No, I'm okay with being on budget too. I like budget. I'm somewhat interested in rotating out on policy, but it's fun.
Sure.
Anyway.
Joan, would you like to be on operational budget subcommittee as well?
I was thinking of capital.
Sure. Capital. Sure.
That one also going to be just 3 members?
You already are on capital.
Yes, yeah.
Yes, you are on capital. Would you like to be
I
on-
would give my operational to somebody else who would like it. If not, I'll serve in that capacity. If you
Okay.
need the membership.
I don't mind doing it if Joan wants.
Okay. So,
Joan, would you want to go to policy? Or not?
I would rather not.
Oh.
and keep in mind for operational and bargaining, which hopefully will be a moot point this year. We'll all be invited. However, in the case that we need a subcommittee, these representatives will be used.
And
So
will
that-
we list the other 2 as alternates? So then that way we'll always be able to have a thing?
I think that should be our standard practice, if everyone's okay with that.
Yeah, it's in our policies I read earlier, and it just gives us more, like Greg said, more flexibility. So
Okay.
we don't back ourselves into a corner.
Okay. So Keith, Erin, and myself on operational. I have Kelly and Keith on collective bargaining. I'm just looking for one more person. You don't really have to do anything this year.
I'll go on collective.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Okay. I have it all written down. Do I need to state it for the record one more time? I think we're good.
I think
I
we're
have
good.
it written down. Okay. Perfect.
Recorded. They can rewind.
Excellent. Great. Thank you so much, everyone. I know that was a little bit of logistics to take care of. All right. And again, if you have any concerns, just email me and we can bring that up at our next meeting. So next we're going to move on to school zone signage, which I believe is Mr. Lavoie.
Yeah, so I'll just say a couple comments before turning it over to Keith. This is just another example of the partnership between the town of Northborough and the public school system. And Keith has been working collaboratively with Scott Charpentier around safety around our school buildings. So Keith has some positive news to share.
Yes, I do. And I do want to thank Mrs. Gannett for bringing this up a couple of months ago. Very quickly, Principal Sear and I looked at each other and went, yep, that is accurate. There is no school zone signage for the Proctor School. But it also led to a deeper investigation. We wanted to make sure that the lighting units at all the other facilities were working properly. And in fact, they were not. So with the help of Mr. Charpentier, we were able to get the town's electrician that we contract out to check not only the lights functionality, but also the time in which they run. So they are on a timer. And we got that all aligned well, not only for the end of this school year, but for the start of next school year, which we'll consider the start time adjustment. So all of that has been evaluated and those lighting systems are operational. And every time I drive by, I make sure that they are working properly. Also with Mr. Charpentier, we did take a look at why Proctor did not have school zone signage, and it was a little bit of a puzzle. We are doing a little deeper investigation on that and why it happened, but without delay, we quickly ordered some school zone signage, more of a reflective type than the ones that would light up or flash. And those were installed in the last week and a half or so. So they are in place right now. The additional safety work that's being done at Proctor is that Mr. Charpentier committed to having the crosswalks painted and getting that to a brighter definition, which will certainly help the overall safety. So collectively, like Greg said, it was a partnership. We were able to get everything evaluated, inspected, reviewed, and improved within a couple of months. So very happy about the progress, and we'll continue to keep an eye on those as the months unfold.
Thank you so much, Keith. And Kelly, thank you so much for mentioning this a few meetings ago, and Keith for really getting the ball rolling.
No
Any
problem.
questions or comments?
All about the kids. It's all about the kids. Got to keep them safe.
Safety first.
So there's some new signage at Peasley School too. So I drove by the other day, and there's some new signage that looked very helpful.
Excellent.
Excellent. Thank you for keeping our students safe. All right, next order of business is the MSBA statement of interest for the Z School roof.
Sure. So just share a few words and then turn it over to Keith. So the Massachusetts School Building Authority, which is a quasi-independent government authority, and really has the purpose of funding capital projects across the Commonwealth schools. And it really works with local communities to create affordable, sustainable, and energy efficient schools across Massachusetts. It has two programs. One is a core building program, and it provides reimbursement. That is how the Lincoln Street School project was funded. Northborough's reimbursement is a little over 50%. Also, the MSBA has accelerated repair projects that works with districts around windows, boilers, and roofs. So looking at our capital plan and working with John Kader, the town administrator, we are hoping to submit a statement of interest, and Keith can explain that process, but it will require a vote to the committee, from the committee this evening. And I'll just share that the statement of interest does nothing more than it puts us in a queue to be considered or invited into a process with MSBA, does not commit any money or does not force us into a project. So at this point in time, I will turn it over to Keith, and he can share some of the details and the work that he's done to get this lined up.
Thank you, Greg. So to start, I'll just kind of mention here a little more detail about where exactly we are with the MSBA project, and then I can talk a little more specifically about the Z roof itself. So the way we are right now is exactly what Greg said, as far as it needing a school committee vote in order for the application to be formally submitted. It also needs the support of the Board of Selectmen, and we are on the agenda for that, I believe, on June 14th. Is that correct, Greg? That's correct.
That is correct.
So in very similar fashion, we have to have specific language that I think is prepared and ready to go for tonight's vote, with hopefully getting your support. And that will solidify the application of being able to move forward and be formally accepted by MSBA. But for the roof itself, the things that you've heard about previously are mostly in relation to the pitched roof sections, and there are 4 of them at the Z School. Those are things that have existed on the capital plan now for a little while. Upon deeper investigation, we did want to take another look at the roof, and in combination of a report that was done by the Garland Company, both in October and then again in May, as short as a couple of weeks ago, also discovered that the flat roof sections are in desperate need of repair. It's a very thin layer of rubberized material that is showing signs of failure in different spots, whether it's adhesion to the side of the building, puncture holes. And the way that it's supported, which you wouldn't know until you went up there to take a look, it's actually weighted down by rocks. And that was the thing that I was most surprised by. And over the 20 plus years, 23-year history of these roofs, those rocks become weatherized and in fact make sharp edges. So if we do get wind and other things that happen, it can the rocks that hold that flat roof portion down can create some puncture holes. We have had a couple of leaks in the roof that have had to been repaired, and they've been repaired successfully. But anytime a roof gets over 20 plus years, we're outside of warranty, and we are going to be repairing that as needed. And the hope is that obviously we hopefully can get the support of the committee tonight, the support of the selectmen later this month, and that MSBA will consider the project, and then we can get even deeper into it so we can understand it. And like Greg said, this isn't a commitment, a financial commitment. The hope is that we can get to the point of really exploring the best possible outcome for the Z roof, and this gets us into the queue for that. Greg, is there anything else you'd like to add about the roof or the process?
The one thing I will add is that it's 1 year short of the SOI of the MSBA threshold. So the roof technically doesn't qualify for age. However, part of the process is really submitting the statement of interest to be considered. And this will allow us in future years, if it doesn't get accepted or invited into the project, what we'll have to do in future years is just resubmit the application. So it puts us in a good position regardless of whether it gets, we're invited into that accelerated repair project.
And the other good part is we have done the background work. We have had it supported by a report from the Garland Company, and we are going to get additional opinions on it to make sure that we are on the right track with what our summation is of its needs.
Thank you very much, Keith.
Welcome.
Any questions about the roof replacement? All right, so there is a motion in your packet on page 5, right underneath the subcommittee assignment.
Read the whole box. Is that what it is?
It is a very long motion, yes. There is one word change that I'm going to suggest to whoever would like to make the motion, and that's line 3. It says has voted, but I recommend that whoever makes the motion changes that to moves, since we're in the process of voting at this time. So if anyone would be so willing to make that motion.
I can do it.
Thank you, Kelly.
All right. Okay, wish me luck. Here we go. I make the motion, having convened an open meeting on June 2nd, 2021, prior to the, I can say SOI, I'm assuming?
Yes.
SOI submission closing date, and the Northborough School Committee of Northborough, Mass., in accordance with its charter, bylaws, and ordinance, move to authorize the superintendent to submit to the Massachusetts School Building Authority the statement of interest form dated June 1st, 2021 for the Marion E. Z School located at 33 Howard Street, which describes and explains the following deficits and the priority categories for which an application may be submitted to the Massachusetts School Building Authority in the future. Roof replacement under priority number 5, replacement, renovation, or modernization of the school facility systems, such as roofs, windows, boilers, heating and ventilation systems, to increase energy conservation and decrease energy-related cost in the school facility. Specifically, the replacement of the shingled roof sections that are rated in poor condition, and hereby further specifically acknowledge that by submitting this statement of interest form, the Massachusetts School Building Authority in no way guarantees the acceptance or approval of an application, the awarding of grant or any other funding committee from Massachusetts School Building Authority, or commits the town of Northborough to filing an application for funding with the Massachusetts School Building Authority.
Thank you so much,
Second.
Kelly. Thank you. I hear a motion, a long one. Thank you,
Second.
Kelly. I hear a second from Keith. And Joan, yes.
I just have a question. I didn't know if it made a difference in the second in the last line, instead of saying any other funding commitment, it was read any other funding committee. Does that make a difference if it was committee that was stated instead of commitment?
Yeah, it does have a different meaning. So Kelly, would you like to just,
Can I say, do I have to read the whole thing again?
no,
No.
you don't have to do that. So in the written
I
statement,
misspoken, so
perfect.
if we could change the third to the bottom line, funding commitment.
Perfect. That's great, Kelly.
And I second that as amended.
Excellent. Very good. Thank you. All right. Any further discussion? Seeing none, let's do a roll call vote. Mrs. Frank,
Yes.
Mrs. Gannett,
Yes.
Mrs. Tagliaferri. I think you're muted, Erin. Mrs. Tagliaferri.
Yes, sorry.
That's okay. Mr. LaBelle
Yes.
and myself, Lauren Bailey Jones, is a yes. So that passes unanimously. Thank you, Keith, for getting the ball rolling on that.
Thank you.
All right, let's see what our next order of business is. Okay, so next is a review of the Joint Policy Development Subcommittee plan. This is what Keith LaBelle was alluding to earlier. So Greg, would you like to take it from here?
Sure. So on May 10th, the Northborough Policy Subcommittee, as well as the Southborough and the Regional Policy Subcommittee met and held a joint policy development subcommittee meeting. And the purpose was really to talk about what efficiencies can we create in terms of capitalizing on the expertise of Southborough, the region, as well as Northborough. Oftentimes in policy subcommittee meetings, we discuss policy, and the question that is asked is, what is Northborough doing, or what is Southborough doing? And we often share legal information. So what we thought we would do for this upcoming year is really map out a plan to do some joint policy work between the three committees. And in your packet is the revised policy development timeline. And I'll just note that the three policy subcommittees did look at what we could tackle. Working with Nancy Bissett and Cheryl Lepre, it was decided that we would begin with Section G, which is personnel. And those are policies that we had hoped to review this past year, but they're also policies that are common between all three districts. And then the first key date on the plan is really in August, having the joint policy committees convene. We're going to send out those policies to legal counsel to get some input and review prior to that meeting. And then the policy joint committee will tackle those policies in August. And then as you can see on the timeline, there are some specific dates or months and times where the joint committee will meet, where policies will be brought back to committees so that we're in alignment of approval dates across the three different districts. So again, this is a proposal. I think whenever you're bringing three committees together or subcommittees together, one of the challenges is to make sure you have a quorum. I think this looks like a plan that will work on paper, and I think it's great to try it, and I'm confident that it will work. But happy to answer any questions or also hear from Keith and Lauren as they were part of the planning process for this work as well.
Thank you. And I believe Joan was there serving as a regional member, if I'm correct about that. Yes. Okay, great. So we'll start with Keith. Thank you.
Yeah, I'd just like to comment, especially for those who weren't there, that it becomes very real when you see the giant spreadsheet of all the policies and at their various stages, and some with alignment and some with lack of alignment across the committees. And it's an immense logistical challenge. I think Mr. Martineau and the central office are doing the right thing by evaluating this in a creative way to figure out how we can have better efficiency and capitalize on all the comments and questions and counsel that we get. So very much in support of giving this a whirl, even if we have to make adjustments as we move forward. It looks like it's already evolved from when we last saw it with feedback from the members. So, it's not easy work, but each committee having a few hundred pages of policies that need to be looked after, it's a really significant logistical challenge. I appreciate the fresh evaluation of this and the fresh approach, if you will, and I'm definitely willing to partake in helping it move forward and iterate and adjust if we need to as we go.
Thank you, Keith. Joan, do you have any reflections?
Yes, I'd like to add that I think as my tenure serving on the different policy subcommittees, at different times, even if we did a separate one for Northborough, sometimes we would be getting a policy that had updates and it would be in a different color and saying that this is what the Southborough K-8 school committee would like to propose. So I think having a joint policy development committee would allow us to have that dialogue and to hear why Southborough or the region, why they wanted to make a change. And so instead of just the superintendent and Nancy Bissett and Cheryl Lepre explaining to us, it would be the joint policy development would allow us to facilitate good discussion among the three districts. But I think also it doesn't mean that we all have to be on the same page together. There may be a time when there may be a policy that is just pertinent just to Northborough. And I guess the members that serve on that policy could do it. But I think it is a great avenue to give it a try and also to do it in the summer when some of the load can be taken off of the administrative staff, especially Cheryl Lepre and Nancy Bissett, because as Keith said, they do a great job with the charts that are color coded and when things have to be updated. So, I think the dialogue between the three district of school committee members will be very beneficial as we go forward.
Thank you, Joan. Anyone else?
I love seeing dates planned out ahead of time. I'm a calendar person, so having it all mapped out, I mean, looks great to me.
Yes, Keith.
Just to add one more thing, I think one thing that we will need to do to make it successful is not, there's going to be moments when the language of our policy and a Southborough policy, for example, aren't the same. And I think it's going to actually force us to go through this neat process of looking at like, what's the intent and what's the content, and not necessarily always be hung up on exactly how it's worded, or maybe even make some compromises there kind of for the greater good. So I think it's going to force us to kind of have a different dimension to the way we review. And, but that's to the benefit of the whole system, gaining efficiency for all stakeholders and the central office. I just wanted to put it out there. We'll have some work to do to keep with content and intent and not necessarily always be worried about, wording per se.
That's a really good point, Keith. So we'll see how this process moves along. We had great conversation at that policy subcommittee meeting on May 10th. And so here's hoping that it's going to work out. All right, we're going to move on to our next order of business, which is to ratify the agreement between the Northborough School Committee and the Northborough Teachers Association, Bargaining Unit C. Yes, Kelly.
I'll make the motion whenever, but I didn't know if Greg wanted to talk about it first or if we're...
No, so it's just going to have Heather kind of recap the tentative agreement that we're proposing this evening and the contract that we're ratifying, or the committee is ratifying. So Heather, if you can just provide a high-level overview, that'd be great.
With the Northborough Teachers Association, Unit C, those are the aides, the administrative assistants, and food services. It would be a 2-year cost of living adjustment of 2% in fiscal year 22 and 2% in fiscal year 23.
Thank you, Heather.
I'd like to make a motion for the Northborough Teacher Association, the Unit C, motion to vote and approve the 2-year agreement with the Northborough Teachers Association Unit C with the 2% COLA increase for fiscal year 22 and a 2% COLA increase for fiscal year 23.
Thank you. Oh, thank you, Joan, for your second. We have a motion and a second to approve the 2-year agreement as set forth in the motion. Any discussion? All right, seeing none. Oh, yes, Keith.
I'd just like to preemptively thank all of our staff, including the aides and the custodians, which is upcoming as well. All the support professionals, assistants, administrative assistants, food services, everybody who's helped us pull off a successful year despite the challenges.
Thank you, Keith. All right, so we have a motion and a second. We're going to do a roll call vote. Mrs. Frank.
Yes.
Mrs. Gannett.
Yes.
Mrs. Tagliaferri.
Yes.
Mr. LaBelle.
Yes.
And myself, Mrs. Bailey-Jones, is a yes. So that passes unanimously. We have ratified the contract with Bargaining Unit C. We're going to move on to ratify the agreement between the Northborough School Committee and the Northborough School Custodians. So we'll turn it to Heather first.
Thank you. So the Northborough custodians, also, we have a tentative agreement with them with a 2% cost of living adjustment for fiscal year 22 and a 2% cost of living adjustment for fiscal year 23. There are also a few language changes, and that includes another category for vacation allowance for after 20 years of service for 25 days of vacation. There's also some language around events preparation, and if there is a last minute cancellation of an event from an outside vendor, then the custodians will be paid $100 for that cancellation for the prep work, setup, and breakdown. And then there's also a middle school field prep stipend for the fall and spring athletic field preparation. And what this does, if this is voted on by the school committee, this brings all of the collective bargaining agreements on the same cycle.
Thank you, Heather.
You're welcome.
Yes, Kelly. Oh, no worries.
Oh, sorry, Keith.
I have a motion, Madam Chair.
Sure, go for it, Keith. Thank you.
I move that the Northborough School Committee vote to approve a 2-year agreement with the Northborough Custodians Association with a 2% COLA increase for fiscal year 22 and a 2% COLA increase for fiscal year 23, and increase of 5 days of vacation for over 20 years, preparation pay for external events, and a $250 middle school field preparation stipend.
Kelly Gannett, second.
Oh, you can take it, Kelly.
Aaron.
All right, we have a motion and a second. It sounds like Aaron's giving the second to Kelly. Any discussion? All right, seeing none, this will be a roll call vote. Mrs. Frank?
Yes.
Mrs. Gannett?
Yes.
Mrs. Tagliaferri?
Yes.
Mr. LaBelle?
Yes.
And myself, Mrs. Bailey-Jones, is a yes. So we now have ratified the agreement between our school committee and the Northborough School Custodians. Excellent. So we're going to move on to agenda item C, which is old business. And first, we're going to start with a Coalition for Equity update from Rhoda Webb. So Rhoda, whenever you're ready, I believe you have screen sharing privileges.
Let's share my screen. Good evening. So good evening. This is an update to our Coalition for Equity. We presented at the Combined School Committee on March 17, and this evening there will be several of us who are on the coalition who are going to give you an update of what we have been doing thus far. So just as a reminder, in our Vision 2026 District Strategic Plan, equity of opportunity is the second objective in our plan, and the Coalition for Equity was definitely established to be a partnership, an alliance with our district in order to approach all the things that we want to do so that we can ensure that the experiences for all our students and our families are the best possible in our district. The coalition was formed with 3 tasks in mind: to build community partnerships, to focus on equity issues in our districts, to create the conditions that we need to have the courageous and difficult conversations, to be able to move forward our learning in a collaborative way about inequality, and then identify and develop resources to support that learning and action. So the goals for our presentation tonight are to review, which we have been done, the formation of the coalition, our key accomplishments, and then our future work, because the work is not done for this year. We will be moving into next year as well. We want to acknowledge and thank all the members of the coalition. This has been a partnership among students, educators, parents, community members, administrators, and school committee members who have devoted many hours to beginning the work, this very exciting and deep work in our district. And several of you are present tonight and this meeting and the school committee. I want to acknowledge also, I did not pay attention, yes, Kumu has joined us, so she will be also presenting as part of our coalition. So welcome, Kumu. What we did at every meeting, we met monthly this year. The last meeting was in May, and we created time and space so that each member, 33 members, over all our meetings, got to share their story and what brought them to the work of equity and to being a part of the coalition. And in order to do that, you need to start building trust and to start having and open up and start sharing the deeper reasons and experiences that we have had with all issues of equity in our lives. So we do want to acknowledge part of the reason for doing that is, I think Maya Angelou captures it really well. We need to understand where we've come from, to understand where we are now in our present, if we want to see change moving forward. So as you know, the coalition formed 4 working groups: the Mascot Study Group, Community Partnerships, Policy Handbooks and Procedures, and Curriculum and Instruction. And next, Greg will address the Mascot Study Group.
Sure. So this fall, the Regional School Committee tasked me to form a short-term study group to evaluate the Algonquin Regional High School mascot. Over the past 2 decades, the Algonquin Regional High School mascot has come up as a mascot that needs to be reviewed and evaluated to see if it really is aligned with the core values of the Algonquin Regional High School. Also, we've received much information from Native American local tribes around that it is not a symbol that represents and honors Native American peoples, and that they had asked us to retire the mascot. So under Sean Bevan's leadership, the principal of Algonquin Regional High School, he led the study group in kind of evaluating the mascot to decide if it should continue or should be changed. The committee was very engaged in the process. It took many months, and the committee did look at seeking input and feedback from the larger community. The study group did present to the Regional School Committee this past spring and made a recommendation to retire the tomahawk as the Algonquin Regional High School mascot. And subsequently, the Regional School Committee voted to retire the Algonquin Regional mascot and to charge the school district to identify a new mascot to lead forward and really to find a mascot that really exemplifies the district's core values of integrity, empathy, inclusivity, equity, perseverance, and respect. And this particular study group did an outstanding job. It was very thorough in its work. It was very thoughtful, and just applaud the overall effort. So the next step will be to form a study group to identify potential mascots for Algonquin Regional High School, and we look forward to moving forward with that work.
Next, Mary Ellen Duggan will address the Community Partnership Working Group.
So I was a part of the Community Partnership Working Group, and our mission as this part of the group was to identify community-based partnerships and leverage community expertise to inform the district's decision-making and foster full and equitable participation. In order to do that, we needed to figure out how best to communicate to include everybody. And we started with a survey that was given to middle school and high school students about the best way for them to receive communication from the district if we needed to get it out to them. So we are in the midst of looking at all of that data. We've had a few delays of our meeting due to different reasons, the senior parade being the last one. So we have individually explored all of the data there, and we're going to meet as a group to determine the best ways to communicate in the school, and then we'll reach to the community to figure out how the best way to communicate with the community is at large. We are looking into a speaker series and in the process of researching who and the feasibility of having a speaker series come in for the school community and the community at large also. And also extending our reach to maybe include 8th graders, and they would be a part of the committee as they went through their high school years. So getting more student involvement there. And I think that is about it for us right now.
And Greg will talk about policy, handbooks, and procedures.
Sure. So we had a very broad task in terms of many policies, handbooks, and procedures to think about as a working group. So the working group really decided to focus on what type of protocol can we establish to bring to the school committees that really creates a process in which the policy subcommittees look at our policies through a lens of diversity, equity, and inclusion. So the working group really drafted a comprehensive policy evaluation protocol that will bring the policy subcommittees through a process to ask questions around what's the intent, what's the impact, what's the overarching goal of the policies. And we have a draft that we'll be presenting to the school committee's policy development subcommittees to actually put into practice and give us feedback so we can update and refine the protocol. So the protocol also will be used to evaluate our student handbooks. And that is something that is our future work in terms of working group. And Keith was also on the working group. And I'm not sure if there's anything I left out, Keith.
No, Greg, you did a great job. I just think it's an amazing opportunity to put this work into practice and formalize it. The work, I think we know that it was going to be quite expansive, but we really boiled it down to a really nice protocol that we could follow. And it seemed like a very sensible first step.
Rhoda, I forgot to add with the community part, we're working with the Northborough DEI group and the Southborough Neighbors for Peace group too. Sorry about that.
No, thank you, Mary Ellen. Thank you for that. Stephanie will explain the work done with curriculum and instruction.
Thank you, Rhoda. So the curriculum and instruction group was a large group. We had a lot of representation from teachers, community members, school committee, district level. And the first time we got together, it was abundantly clear that there was a vast amount of possibilities of where we could go in terms of equity work related to curriculum and instruction. And we spent our first time together identifying possibilities and then prioritizing and narrowing down. And we narrowed it down to 3 things. And so we're going to explain, and then broke into 3 smaller groups. So we had subcommittees of the subcommittee, and we're going to share with you the work of those 3 groups. So the first group was the diversity statement group, and Kumu is with us today, and she is going to explain the work of that group.
Sure. Thanks, Stephanie. Hello, everyone. My name is Kumu Sivarajan. I'm a Southborough parent, having a senior and a sophomore in high school. Pleasure to be here tonight. So Kamali Umiali, Rhoda Webb, and myself worked on the diversity statement. We met 3 times. Most of the work we did between the meetings. We thought it would be as easy as just Googling and getting the diversity statement of the companies and the private. Actually, like we 3 of us decided to look at the public and private sectors. We finally picked 3 companies, 5 school and school districts, and 1 university. We did actually put a ton of time just picking it. It didn't just go by the ranking as niche and Forbes and Fortune, BBB and all that stuff. We really dive deep to really see their authenticity, how serious and committed they are, and are they living their commitment, that sort of things. Really, we did a whole lot of research. When we did pick those 3 companies and 5, they were outstanding statements. Actually, like we wanted to know they are not just for namesake or heck of it. They are living by that, practicing like it's in action. When we did pick them, then we spent a ton of time analyzing their statements. Put those statements in a document, 3 column like statements, and the author. If I pick the statement, I would say the reason behind me picking that, and the rest of the committee, meaning Kamali and Rhoda, will speak their minds on there and put their feedbacks. Like that, we did, we analyzed and we did just see, we saw like what's working and what's not working. And if it's working, how they are achieving, how they are living their commitment and those stuff. And now I think like we have put everything together in a document. It's ready and available. And we did go a little further, and we have bulleted the features of a powerful diversity statement to make it, because diversity statements cannot be a page or 2 pages. It should be, short and sweet. So we have suggested some strong words and like ownership features. Features like genuine, heartfelt. It's like mission. It's not like one time done. It's just ongoing. Things like that we have bulleted. Also, one more step we have given: visual impact. For example, on our district page, it would be lovely if the DEI is on the first homepage, and dedicating an office or things like that we have dedicated. So basically, it's all done. I would think like it's more than the groundwork. It's all there, ingredients. It's just the final person has to just cook it. So it's all there. That's that's our work on the diversity statement in a nutshell. Thank you for all of your time on this issue, and thank you for listening.
Thank you, Kumu. So the second group of the curriculum and instruction subcommittee was focused on resources. And the goal was to identify lists of resources that would support educators in providing windows and mirrors for the wide range of students. And we wanted resources that are aligned to the curriculum frameworks. The expectation was not that this group was selecting resources, but rather vetting lists and access to resources so that educators then could make informed decisions about these lists. They primarily focused on literature, and after there are vast numbers of lists for every type of window and mirror that you could think of. And so they went through many of these lists and using their own professional networks in the case of the educators and community members, they then reviewed the lists, provided their own insights and feedback on them, and created a summary document for elementary, for middle school, and for high school. And also set some ideas of next steps of where this work might continue and ways that we might collaborate across schools and across levels in relation to these resources. The third group, which was slightly different, was the tools and rubrics group. And what this group was doing was looking at the many tools that exist that help educators to evaluate and to analyze curriculum assessment, curriculum materials, and sort of all of these, and even instructional practices in terms of bias and culturally responsive pedagogy. So again, we first identified tools and rubrics that exist, and we then spent time reviewing them, commenting on the tools, discussing them with each other. And we recognized after some work that there was actually some different categories of tools. Some of them were really focused, for example, on if you were trying to review a set of curriculum resources, for example, textbooks, while others were focused on inventorying literature, others on like analyzing a unit of study, and some were about instructional practices. And then the last type of resource we looked at were sets of standards, like standards for teaching tolerance. Ultimately, we also created a summary document of what we learned about the resources that are out there. And we created a tool that could be piloted that we felt took the best of multiple tools and would be used for reviewing curriculum. So for example, curriculum resources such as like textbooks or materials that might be adopted in a particular discipline. So we have from these three groups a lot that we can work with, the groups have contributed an enormous number of work hours when you put it all together that we can now take and move forward with.
Thank you, Stephanie. I'm sorry I moved the slide too quickly. So as we started, this was the beginning year and the work that we have accomplished thus far. Our next steps moving into next year is to continue building those partnerships with our groups in town, including the Northborough Diversity and Equity Inclusion Group that Mary Ellen mentioned, and Neighbors for Peace in Southborough. We're going to survey our coalition members to reflect on this year and gather thoughts about next year. We will be also recruiting, adding more students and community members. A few community members are not able to continue next year. And then as we have talked about our district equity audit, we'll have the coalition participate in that as well. So that's the update that we wanted to bring to you this evening.
Thank you so much.
Very much.
Thank you for your presentation. Do we have any comments or questions from committee members for Rhoda? And I think, oh, and Kumu is still here as well. Or Stephanie. I just want to thank everyone for all of your work. Kumu, thank you so much for being here and for coming to our meeting. You were our lone attendee for quite a while, and now you're a panelist. So thank you for all of the work. I know that I've really enjoyed serving as the liaison from the school committee to the coalition, and have just witnessed the incredible work that the coalition has done. And it's exciting to hear that the work will continue into the next school year. All right, any other comments before I move on? All right, thank you so much. And Kumu, thanks for being with us tonight. We appreciate it. All right, so we are going to move to our next agenda item, which is our start time update. So we are moving into a new schedule for our high school next year, a new start time. So Mr. Martineau, if you'd like to take it away.
Sure. So I'll be turning it over to Keith briefly, but I just want to again acknowledge that this is another example of a multi-year journey to get to the point where we're getting ready to implement a new start time that again allows our high school students to start a little bit later and aligns with our research. So Kelly, this is another great example of great work over time to make a significant impact. So I turn it over to Keith, who will provide an overview of where we've been and where we're headed this fall.
Excellent. Can everyone see my screen?
Yes, thank you.
Excellent. Great. Well, thank you, Greg. It certainly has been a journey, and now we are moving to the next phase. I just want to remind everyone that, as Greg did mention, it was a multi-phased approach that got us here, from educating to learning a lot about the differences of sleep and how it impacts our students, all the way to the different options that were available and which ones were feasible to put into place. So I am, last May, the school committee did vote to approve this start time adjustment, and we've been working steadily since last May on our implementation plan, and it is underway, well underway, and this is a great opportunity for an update. I also wanted to certainly thank those that participated. I believe Mrs. Bailey-Jones participated in a task force as well. Did Mrs. Frank as well? Did you participate on the task force, Joan?
No, I did not.
No, you did not. I think it was just Mrs. Bailey-Jones, but thank you for doing that. It certainly was helpful. So as we move into the next phase of things, we want to go back and remember why. There are certainly a lot of good reasons why we're making this adjustment, as I specified in the slide, and this was stuff that we had shared throughout the spring last year as we made the recommendation to make the adjustment. So now we're into our implementation plan. It is broken up into 3 phases. One is communication. The second is the implementation of the actual routes themselves, and certainly an analysis. And I will break these down into a slide per, so you understand what is coming next. First, and probably most important, is our communication plan. Superintendent Martineau has reminded the community that we are changing our start time for September 1, 2021. That has been sent out. The other major change, which will be new for this year, is we want to send a specialized communication to all our families. And that email communication will have specific information for each student. And that information will be sent in an email form, and it will include the student's bus number, the bus stop identified by the address, and the estimated time of arrival in the morning and drop off in the afternoon. That'll be something that we hope to send out shortly after school gets out this year, which will probably be in late June. And the other thing that we're committed to that will be part of our communication plan is the continued implementation and revising of Here Comes the Bus. We are off to a pretty good start. I did report earlier that we had a few growing pains along the way, but for those that it is working, it's working remarkably well, and we've gotten a lot of compliments about it. So due to that, and certainly with the anxiety that any type of change provokes, we want to give people as much information as possible and as specific information as possible. And I do feel that this plan will do both. As we roll into the implementation phase, we did have to create new routes. I want to give a big thank you to Jean Pinto, our transportation assistant and registrar, for her work in this creation. Actually, one of the silver linings of COVID is we did have to redo our bus routes on multiple occasions. So she didn't really have to redo this once or twice. We had to redo it 2 or 3 times over the course of the year to maximize, or to actually minimize, the number of students on each bus and to maximize its performance with the restrictions that were in place. So COVID, like with many things we can identify, did provide some silver linings, and that was certainly one that got Jean very accustomed to making these types of shifts. The one thing that, and the other thing we're not anticipating will be large, is a huge change from what people are presently experiencing. So the routes themselves in Northborough and for our Algonquin and Milliken students are not going to be radically changed. They're going to be altered in order to fulfill the start time commitment. But aside from that, it's not going to be radical. And certainly at the K-5, it's going to be minimal. The other logistical change for the upcoming year is that our middle school students and high school students will be riding on the bus together. This is something we are going to be monitoring very closely with Principal Carb, Assistant Principal Callahan, and Assistant Principal McGowan at the high school to make sure that that transition goes smoothly. One note from our data that we collected is that very few juniors and seniors do take the bus. So we could very likely have, 6th graders riding with 10th graders, and that seems a lot more digestible. It is also customary to have that in other school districts, so we're certainly not alone. And the other thing worth highlighting that might have been missed, especially for Northborough, is we do have a tiered system. And that'll be more on display when I show the start times in a slide or two. And then this is the part that we really are able to burrow down and get deep. Jean has done an analysis of each bus's run time. Also, traffic patterns are being analyzed. Certain performances of the buses right now are being reviewed, and all of that data is being collected to make sure that we're balancing the routes properly, so we don't have a few buses that are super early or super late, and we're really finding that good window of time that maximizes the experience for everyone. So certainly there's been a lot of work that's being done behind the scenes, and we're generally not going to know how things truly pan out until we get going next, the start of next school year on September 1. And as far as analysis is certainly something that we are going to keep in mind as we start the school year and really watching how the buses perform. But the key to it is being responsive. I think that was on display throughout this school year with the different changes that had to be made. Jean does a very nice job of getting back to parents, even if there's an outstanding question. Certainly keeping that level of responsiveness will certainly help during this transition time. North Reading Transportation, our bus company, is committed to a simulation in August to make sure that the drivers are getting out and practicing these routes. The routes are going to be in their hands within about a week or so for their review, and certainly their input is incredibly valuable. We did that a lot this year. We actually did 2 full cycles of driver input into the routes this year, which really made them invested and committed to what we were putting on paper. So that was a huge adjustment that we were able to make this year, and we're hoping to carry that over for the start of next. And I do expect, just like with any type of transition like this, I'll be able to provide the school committee with an update in the fall of 2021 with some performance data, as well as maybe some feedback that has been received. So without further ado, this is the collective system, which really doesn't impact Northborough specifically, but I did want to let you know that the changes did also occur in Southborough, almost to a greater degree. And when we burrow down a little bit further on this, the Northborough buses themselves, and I'll give you a second to take a peek at this and digest it. This is not changed from what has been previously presented or shared. Even with the route development, we've been able to meet these marks with the anticipated runtime. So this seems like we're going to be good to go for September 1. And like I mentioned, more communication will be coming out from Superintendent Martineau and myself as the month unfolds, and certainly in preparation for the start of next school year. Mrs. Gannett, do you have a question?
Thank you. Just quickly, is the 10 minutes going to impact Milliken at all? They're losing 10 minutes. I mean, they're obviously, are they taking it off a homeroom? Are they taking a minute off of all their classes? How is that going to impact them? I know 10 minutes doesn't seem like a lot, but when it's accumulated, I just hear the parents, it's an hour less learning a week and, and all that going on. And so.
Principal Carb, do you want to comment on the adjustment that you've had to make?
Sure. Yeah, it is 10 minutes. You're right. But I think it's about a minute off each period. So if you look at it that way, it isn't that much. It also puts us in alignment with Trotter. We have been out of alignment since I've been there. So this kind of aligns the two middle schools, and we are looking forward to that.
Great. Thank you.
Any other questions for Mr. Lavoie? Keith, I saw your hand up before. Did you have a question?
It was the same question. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. All right. It looks like we have no other questions. Oh, yes. I'm sorry. Joan, thank you.
Yes, I just have a question. Does this affect anything with the time and learning that we have to support, that we have to submit to the Department of Education by taking the 10 minutes off?
No, we still meet the time on learning requirements.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for your question, Joan. And thank you, Keith, for all of your work as well. It looks like we have another question from Kelly.
All right, I was just looking. So is the idea that they would pick up the Milliken students and then they would go and pick up the high school students at the end of the day, so that the middle school and the high school students would be getting home at the same time?
That's
or
correct.
Are they separate buses?
They're not separate buses. They'll be riding the same. So they'll first do a pickup loop at Milliken and then head directly to Algonquin to pick up the students there and then continue with the route.
So the riding time for the kids might be longer on the bus.
About 10 minutes.
But okay. But at least that's solving I know one of the things was they were saying that, if the younger kids get out of school way before the older kids, then how is that going to help? So it's nice to see that it's not going to be a difference for that, at least.
I don't think it's as drastic as people thought it was going to be.
Yeah.
It's going to be a little cleaner than we first anticipated.
Thanks, Kelly. Joan?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Keith, when you talk about picking up the Milliken middle school kids first and then going to Algonquin, are there going to be a section of the bus that will just be for the Milliken students, or are they going to be intermingling seats with the high school kids?
We haven't defined that yet. And coming out of COVID, we did have some success with assigning students to seats, which was something that was required as part of the protocol. We've explored doing the sections, the front being for the younger kids and the back being for the older kids. I did experience that at Trotter when I was the principal there. We had Neary and Trotter students riding together, and we tried that. And for some, it was very easy, and some it actually created issues. So I don't think we want to lock ourselves into a definite way of doing this. I think we're going to work closely with the bus drivers and the families and make sure that the experience is good. And it might be better that they are mixed, depending on the combination of kids. And certainly the principals will have input on that. We haven't decided definitively how we're going to start the year, but that certainly is a possibility of doing that separation.
And I think all of the time there's been good communication between the bus drivers and administration of the buildings. So I think the communication and keeping on top of that in the first beginning weeks would be very beneficial. And I think whatever plan you choose will be one that will work out to be the best. But I would say just be aware of it and just to have the communication with the bus drivers and be aware of what the students, because we're going to be having, sixth graders for the first time on those buses with high school that have just been in the elementary buildings K through 5.
That's
So
correct.
those are the students that I would be concerned about.
Agreed.
Thank you.
Keith.
Thank you. Just want to make sure I'm understanding. So if I will have actually an 8th grader and a 9th grader. Will that mean that my 8th grader gets on the bus at Milliken and then rides to Algonquin, and my 9th grader gets picked up and they ride the same bus to the house?
That's correct.
Okay.
Any other questions or comments?
Just through the chair.
Yes.
Keith mentioned this in the beginning. So right now it's conceptual, it's on paper. So as we move to the implementation phase, there will be adjustments and updates. And we will be doing, as Keith mentioned, a close analysis of the first month of school to make sure that, we're looking at ride times, any issues in terms of who's riding what bus. So a lot more information, a lot more work needs to be done. And, as Keith mentioned, we have Jean Pinto, who's done an amazing job. Also, our admin assistants in each of the buildings have been key parts to this work, making sure that they know the routes, they know the kids, and that they're on the right buses. So we're excited about this change.
One other detail I think is worth noting is that we are routing every child. We did not go through a bus registration process this spring. That proved to be not 100% effective last year, and we had a year to kind of review that. So bus registration is not something that we're going to be requiring. So we did go ahead and route every student, which obviously impacts the run time. So the run times we've created are probably going to be the maximum, and they're only going to get shorter because we do have students that get dropped off. So it's only going to improve performance because we've maximized the routes themselves.
Thank you. And Greg, I think that the community has appreciated your constant reminders over the month of May into the month of June about this change. And so people are starting to, mentally prepare for these changes. So thank you for that continued communication. And thank you again, Keith. All right, we're going to move on. So agenda item D is the superintendent's report to the committee. And we're going to start with our principal's reports.
Sure, just a couple quick updates. So Dr. Coakley actually is being a parent this evening and is actually at her daughter's awards night for the Grafton Public Schools. And Amy Souls will be giving the principal update. But before we launch into the principal's update, I just want to take a minute and acknowledge all of the work of our Northborough principals. It has been an incredibly unique and challenging year, and they have spent the year asking others what they need and making sure that everyone was supported and all the schedules worked out. And but I also want to acknowledge that they've led with great integrity. They have had many sleepless nights. They have worked 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for months and months and months. And I could not be more proud of the work that they've done. It has not been perfect, but they have done an outstanding job and should be commended for their work. And I'm sure I'm not alone in thinking that hopefully this is the only pandemic that they have to lead as principals this year. But again, I just want to extend my gratitude to their work this year. And with that said, I will turn it over to Amy.
Thank you, Greg. So as you can imagine, the end of the year is quite full with a hustle and bustle of the adults and the children in the building preparing for the end of the year, the following year. And it's also a time to give thanks. So I do want to first say that Alana prepared tonight's principal report, but she wasn't able to deliver it. So these are her very eloquent words. So as our school year draws to a close, we want to thank our educators for their tireless efforts, the care, and the compassion shown to our students. Over the course of the school year, our teachers have worked hard to ensure that our students had quality educational experiences and that their social emotional well-being was a priority. We are so proud and grateful for the work they have done this school year. The last few weeks are traditionally busy ones in our elementary schools. This year is no exception. Teachers are closing out the school year with the current students, but also planning for the next school year. This work includes ordering supplies, working on student placement, and preparing for summer and fall curriculum work. In the last 2 weeks of school, we will celebrate our fifth graders as they get ready to embark on their new adventures in middle school. Each school will hold a recognition ceremony for both in-person and remote learning fifth graders. These ceremonies will be held outside at our schools. We're looking forward to recognizing our students alongside their families. The fifth grade band will be performing in various capacities in the last 2 weeks of school. These performances include outdoor concerts at fifth grade recognition ceremonies. Lastly, we would like to wish the Northborough students, families, and staff a relaxing summer, and we hope that everyone takes time to disconnect and enjoy some much deserved time away.
Thank you so much, Amy. And Alana as well for her work.
Alana had parent duty as well, so she had to leave a little bit early.
We really appreciate everything that the principals have done this year. I'm sure you are looking forward to a little bit of maybe rest and relaxation this summer, although we all know how that really goes. And I think, Michelle, are you going to present for the middle school? Great, thank you so much.
So we have been busy at Milliken trying to get ready for next year, as well as closing out the current year. And as always, it is a challenging time of year, but it's also a really exciting time of year. So last week we had our fifth grade parent orientation via webinar. We had about 100 parents who attended, and I have to thank our sixth grade team leaders, Dave Dackel, our band director, as well as Jen Callahan, our assistant principal, for presenting to parents with me. It was not typical because we were not in person, but it was still wonderful to be able to connect with our families. It was recorded and shared out via the elementary principals to parents, and it is also posted on our website, as well as the slide deck. So we are excited to welcome in our new group of next year's sixth graders. This week we are engaging in MCAS. So on Tuesday, all 6th, 7th, and 8th graders who were in person took their MCAS. That is over 40 small group and one-to-one accommodation groups, as well as our 20 in-person homerooms. Today, the same was true for math. So that is over 65 testing spaces and proctors for testing. Tomorrow will be our 8th grade science, technology, engineering MCAS. And then next week, we will have our SARP students participate in MCAS. And I want to thank all of our teachers and staff for their work on organizing MCAS this year. It has certainly been a challenge with the situation, but it has gone very smoothly. I want to thank our tech team, especially Meg Popolo and Galen Hammond. They were wonderful in supporting the work. Some of our teachers were nervous that students would not charge their devices, and we only had 1 or 2 each day out of about 400 plus students. So that was wonderful. Next week, we have our band concerts, and we are very excited. Those will be held outside. Tuesday is 7th grade, Wednesday is 8th grade, and Thursday is 6th grade. Those will be at 6:30 in the evening. We heard our 6th graders rehearsing today. Our SARP students were invited in to play with our in-person students, and they sounded terrific. I thought it was the 8th grade band. I was listening from my office, and I went outside and saw that it was the 6th graders. And considering they've been performing and practicing in the teaching center over 10 feet apart all year, some of them have been practicing remotely. They sounded amazing. So we're looking forward to that. And I want to thank Dave Dackel and Avery Parse for their work with our young musicians. We are also planning our end of the year activities for our 8th graders. We have invited our SARP students in to take part on the 16th and the 17th in the afternoons to engage in field and fun days with some exciting outside activities. We've also invited our SARP students in on the 18th to our graduation ceremonies. They will be outside. We will be having one team at one time and the other team at the other time so that we can get everybody in safely. And so far, the response from our staff has been wonderful. So we are excited about that and providing an opportunity for all of our 8th graders to celebrate and to connect together. And we are working on our master schedule. We have to make some adjustments to what we were doing this year, but we are in good shape with that. We're also working on student placement for next year. So again, our teachers, our support staff have stepped up and really spent a lot of their off time working on these big projects. And I want to thank our facilities manager and our custodians as well, because as we are continuing with this year and finishing out this year, they have been helping move us forward to thinking about next year and getting ready for what the fall is going to look like.
Thank you so much, Michelle. Anyone have any questions or comments for our principals? Keith, thank you.
Actually, quick clarifying question. What time's the concerts again next week for each?
They are 6:30 to 7.
Thank you.
Sure.
Yes,
it looks like the weather will cooperate as well.
That'll be great. Joan, thank you.
Yes, I'd like to thank the principals for their reports and for the principals that are not here, and also thank them for everything that they've done. I would say since last summer, August was not an easy month. We had almost a meeting every day, a Zoom meeting, getting ready for the reopening of the phasing in of schools. And all your hard work has not gone unnoticed. And hopefully that this summer you will be able to relax and do what is the normal routines about getting ready for opening up the schools in September. But you have some time for your family and for yourself, because it is so you're so deserving of all those accolades, and have some time off to yourselves. So thank you very much and have a great summer.
Thank you to our principals. I think Joan said it perfectly. So we do really appreciate you. And I'm sure you are excited that this year is just about to a close. And we look forward to a sense of hopefully some normalcy next year. So thank you so much, principals, for your reports. All right, anything else for our principals before we move on? All right, Greg, did you have something you wanted to say?
No, I was just going to move on to the enrollment report. So
perfect. Let's do that.
So the enrollment report as of May 26, 2021 is in your packet, and our current enrollment is 1,539 students, and which reflects a no change since the April report. And we are in a good place in terms of class sizes for the launch of the 21-22 school year.
Thank you. Kelly has a question.
Thanks. Just a quick question about for next year and stuff. It did look like there were some projections that they look tight. Is it in the budget to add third teachers to some of the classrooms if it comes to that, or?
No, when we are, one student over, so, the class size is 22 in the 5th grade, we might have one class that's 22 and then another one that's 23.
Mm-hmm.
We would not hire another section. Again, based on our class size policy, we'd again look at space in other schools and assign students to other schools. What we always see in the summer too is a lot of movement in terms of move-ins and move-outs, and we're keeping a close eye on that. For those classes that are at the cap, we have frozen those classrooms in terms of enrollment and feel confident that we have enough space in other schools at grade levels to be able to accommodate class sizes.
Okay. My last question too, about that is on the bottom with the kindergarten enrollment. It says, obviously there's going to be 0 for half day, but it says 133 full day, 10 half day, but a total of 134. So I didn't know if that was just a typo and there was only 1 signed up, or if that's supposed to say 144 kindergarten students.
I can look into that, Kelly. I have to, I can talk to Jean Pinto in the morning to see and get clarification.
Yeah, I was just curious. I'm assuming by the numbers adding up to 10, it's probably supposed to be 144. But then that's the other part of it is, so did these kids sign up for half day before the announcement, I'm assuming? So
yeah, so we, again, as I think we communicated in the letter.
Yeah, I saw the letters around people said.
So no half day kindergarten. And if that is the case, Kelly will reach out to those families and let them know.
Great, thank you.
And Joan, I believe you have a question.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Question is for Greg. Greg, what is the process of when schools are closed and we have families move into the district? If parents want to register their children, do they go to the local school or do they come to the district office?
So during the summer months, registration does take place at the central office. We also, Keith and Jean Pinto have worked on making electronic registration available to families. So that is available now as well. So it will be a combination of electronic registration as well as coming to the central office.
Thank you.
All right, so it looks like our next agenda item is our monthly general fund expenditure report.
And I will turn it over to Becky for the monthly general fund expenditure report, as well as the COVID-19 unanticipated expenses.
Thank you, Greg. Well, it's unbelievable to think that there's less than 1 month remaining in fiscal year 2021. The finance team is busy working with schools and departments to close out the fiscal year. As you can see from the enclosed report, as of May 31st, 2021, we had $236,704 remaining on the bottom line, or 0.94% of our fiscal year 21 budget. Last year at this time, we did have more remaining on the bottom line. However, that was due to the closure and not incurring as many expenses. So last year we had $418,178 or 1.68% remaining. Overall, I'm pleased at where we stand at this point in the fiscal year. You'll note from the report that some of the educator salary line items have increased from last month's report. And that change is a result of our memorandum of agreement with the Northborough Teachers Association. The other piece that I would like to point out is that I'm continuing to work with Northborough Town Accountant Jason Little to move additional expenses that are currently on the operational budget onto the town's CARES Act funding. And then finally, I really want to recognize Elena Daco. She is the Northborough Financial Coordinator for all her work this year. There were numerous changes throughout the year. You'll recall that 3-page personnel report that we had a few months ago. And she rolled with it, and she never seemed to get flustered and just did an outstanding job. So I just want to acknowledge all of her work in this fiscal year. And that concludes that piece of the report. So, Madam Chair, I don't know if you want to take a vote on that first.
Yes, I'm looking for a motion.
Madam Chair?
Yes, Joan.
I move that we accept the Northborough Public School District FY 2021 Budget Monthly General Fund Expenditure Report as of May 31st, 2021 until audited.
Second.
Great, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All right, we'll do a roll call vote. Mrs. Frank?
Yes.
Mrs. Gannett?
Yes.
Mrs. Tagliaferri?
Yes.
Mr. LaBelle?
Yes.
And myself, Mrs. Bailey Jones, is a yes. So we have approved that. Thank you so much, Becky.
Thank you.
And now our COVID expenditures, correct?
Yes. Okay, so an update on some of the grant funds that we are eligible to receive. I have added a new line, and that is the ESSER 3. It's like it's a great sequel, I guess, and not like a bad movie sequel, but a great funding sequel where at least progressively, it seems that the amount that the town is receiving or the school district is receiving is increasing. So the ESSER 2 funds, we are in the process of applying for those funds. And if you recall, those can be used through the end of fiscal year 2023. And the most recently announced is the ESSER 3, and that is part of the American Recovery Plan. Those funds we are eligible to apply for in the fall. The deadline is actually October 31st for those funds, and we can utilize those through the end of fiscal year 2024. And you can see that we are eligible to receive $349,271 towards ESSER 3. So we are pleased with that, and we will be putting together a plan and a proposal to submit to the states. In terms of where we stand with our expenses, there are a few areas really that kind of stick out as areas where we may have over expended based on what our projections were. The first one are the teacher substitutes and the additional staff. And we've talked about that throughout the year where we have put new teachers into the SARP program, the standalone remote program. And then when we did bring students back in, we did have to bring additional staff on. So you can see that as of May 26th that we have either spent or encumbered about $506,000 in those areas. The other area is technology. We had anticipated about $98,000, and we have actually expended $147,845, which thankfully with these grants, we have been able to utilize those to the fullest extent. Our preschool revolving account, you'll notice that there is a slight increase in the loss that we were projecting. However, it is a very slight increase. So right now it is about a $10,000 projected loss. And that is based on the estimated tuitions that we hope to receive this year, or that we will receive this year, as well as the expenses. And if you'll recall that we did have a beginning balance of for fiscal year 2021 of $98,000. So we are able to offset that loss utilizing those funds. And in terms of where we stand with our tuition and our expenses, once again, we are tracking our tuition collections very closely to our expenses. Actually, as of yesterday, I'm pleased to report that the percent of tuition that has been received has gone over the 90% mark. With only really the 1 month remaining. The final bills were due as of yesterday. So we are, continuing to receive those payments and post those payments. And then lastly, with our food service program, I love to present when it is a number that is showing in the positive, and you can see as of May 26th, our year-to-date total is $3,839. I can tell you that the last 2 days of May were also very helpful, and had those numbers been reported, we would have actually seen a profit closer to $10,000 for May. So we are seeing our sales increasing now that more students are in the building, and many students are also taking advantage of the breakfast program that is offered at Proctor as well. So I'm pleased to see that as of right now, we are operating in the black, and I do expect that to continue for June. And that concludes the COVID-19 report.
Thank you so much, Becky. Kelly.
Thank you. I love seeing it in the black, the food expenses, because I know that's always been a red going for previous years and stuff. Is there anything, do you think it's going to be back into the red next year, or is there anything that we can take from this, or is it just primarily the reimbursement from the state that's really helped us?
So I will say, and Keith, feel free to jump in, but we have been looking forward to FY22. And one of the things that has been helpful for us is that it has been announced that the free meals will continue for the next school year for all children throughout the Commonwealth, actually throughout the country. And we're waiting to hear on what that reimbursement rate is. We are hearing rumblings that it could actually increase. So, we are thinking positive thoughts for FY22.
It's awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, we absolutely are. And certainly with the type of production that people have to do and the preparation of the food, those are added expenses, whether they're the materials themselves or the food costs themselves, and certainly the labor to put things together. So we are monitoring it closely. I too, Becky, every time we get an email of that type, we're always hoping that we get that higher reimbursement rate, because it'll just make that work even easier. But we're monitoring closely. We are working with the medical advisory team as well as we monitor what DESE is sharing with us about how we're going to be able to serve food next year. And we're anxiously awaiting that, but we're not anticipating anything formal, at least for another month or so, probably the month of July.
I'll just add to that since the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education signaled that we'll be reopening to full capacity in the fall, I think having full capacity, serving lunches every day, I think there is a good indication that we could be significantly in the black next year, which will put us in a good financial position moving into fiscal year 23. So all good news. Just one comment too, and that is just thanking Becky for her leadership as well as the financial team, that it's been an extremely challenging year, from starting July 1 to now, trying to project what will happen, what impact the COVID-19 pandemic would have on our operational budget. And I'll just share that it continues to be very challenging because it's not always clear what grant funding can be used for. We are working very closely with the town in terms of the CARES Act funding that it received, and trying to move as many eligible expenses onto the CARES Act. The other news that we received also is that some expenses that were deemed not eligible for FEMA are now eligible for FEMA. So again, whenever there's a change in funding mechanism, it requires our financial team to do all sorts of shifting and adjustments. And they've done an amazing job keeping up with it, and again, trying to maximize the COVID-related funding to mitigate any offsets to our budget for FY21. So thank you, Becky, and your team.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments for Becky? All right, before we move on, I know Mr. Martineau, the school committee gives its full support to excuse the principals at this time, if it is your will.
I'm not sure it's the right thing to do this evening. Thank you. Have a good night. And
thank you so much, principals. We hope you have a great summer.
Bye.
Bye. All right, so we're going to move on to agenda item E, which is school committee member reports. So does anyone have anything that they would like to share tonight? Yes, Kelly.
Just trying to find anything. So they had the Going the Distance Award for the NSPAC, and it was an amazing ceremony. It was done virtually, and the speeches were amazing, and the singing groups were amazing, and it was so nice. I can't wait for it to be back in person next year. I'm hoping it's going to be back in person, because there is something that it is very moving when it is in person. But I mean, to deal with what the cards were dealt with, they went above and beyond. I thought they did a great job. So,
thank you, Kelly. And thank you so much to the NSPAC for hosting those Go the Distance Awards. I know it's looked forward to every year, and it's great to see all the teachers who are recognized during that ceremony. So thank you. Anyone else? All right. So we can move on We have agenda item F, educational policy. There's none at this time. And agenda item G, policy development. And there's also none at this time. So that brings us to H, which is personnel items. Craig?
Sure. So in your packet is the personnel report for June 2nd, 2021. And we've already shared information about the retirees, which is an important piece of this report. So that is the personnel report.
Thank you very much. So we move on to communications. Oh, I apologize, Erin.
Can I just ask a quick question? I'm happy to see there's another technology support specialist being hired for the district. Greg, can you explain how she will be utilized? I know right now there's just Olivia, correct?
Correct.
And she's shared between the 4 schools. Will they each be assigned 2 schools, or will they share the 4 schools? I've been hearing some frustration amongst the K-5 teachers and staff that technology is so incorporated now and that they're being asked to do more and more technology into their curriculum, but they don't have the building-based support. And so teachers are hesitant to launch these new activities and incorporate this into curriculum when, if something happens and they can't fix it, and there's no one there to support them, they're kind of, they have to scrap their lesson. They also have been made aware that Southborough has building-based IT support in their buildings, so that's not sitting well with them, which I know we can't compare. But I guess what would be interesting to know is how this support person is going to kind of be fitted into the district. And the other thing is, will there be consistency? Right now, I think they don't know which day of the week Olivia is going to be at each school. So it's hard to plan a lesson that has a lot of technology in it because they don't know if she's there. So I think that would also alleviate some of that hesitation. So any information on how she's going to be used would be great.
Sure. So I think that unfortunately we had a employee who, fortunate for the employee to get another position. What we find is some of these entry-level IT positions, it's a stepping stone for folks, and they get experience with us and then they grow somewhere else. We have had a variety of models where, one person supports 2 schools and the other tech supports the other 2 schools. I will share that the difference this time is that Maurice Myrie is on board in terms of the Chief Information Officer. He's really evaluating how best to support our educators' technology needs. I also think that it's probably a future conversation as we kind of begin the FY22 budget process, FY23 budget process, looking at integration specialists in terms of having educators who have a real expertise in integration of technology into the curriculum and building some parity with our Southborough colleagues. So that is some future planning and future conversations we should have. Olivia right now has a little bit more responsibility in terms of that integration piece, even though that's not, she's not a licensed technology integration specialist. She just has a keen interest in that, and she's been supporting it in that way. So more conversation to follow. I think having Maurice kind of evaluate how things are working, listening to teachers' frustrations, and trying to make sure that they have the support they need to do what they need to do to work well with our students.
Okay, and is she full-time?
Yes.
You hire full-time? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Erin. All right, so we are going to move on. We have no communications at this time, so that brings us to agenda item J, which is action on minutes. And so these can be read in batch. Just please note that the retained executive session minutes can be voted on and released. Keith.
I have a motion, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
I vote that the school committee take the following action on minutes approve the special open meeting minutes of May 1st, 2021. Approve the open meeting minutes of May 5th, 2021. Approve the capital planning subcommittee meeting minutes of October 26, 2020. Approve the policy development subcommittee meeting minutes of January 11, 2021. And to approve and release the executive session minutes of March 3rd, 2021.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion by Keith and a second by Joan. Any discussion? Seeing none, this will be a roll call vote. Mrs. Frank?
Yes.
Mrs. Gannett?
I'm on mute. Yes.
Mrs. Tagliaferri?
Yes.
Mr. LaBelle?
Yes.
And myself, Mrs. Bailey Jones, is a yes. So those were approved as moved.
And through the chair, can I just make one general comment about the minutes?
Yes.
And that is just a thank you to Cheryl Lepre. I think we've had, I don't know how many meetings we've had as subcommittees and school committee meetings, but she has stayed on top of our minutes, and we are in a great place in terms of having our minutes approved and released in terms of open meeting law. So again, just a thank you to Cheryl Lepre for her leadership and organization and doing all the work that she's done to make sure that the minutes are done correctly and are released appropriately.
Definitely couldn't do this without Cheryl. So thank you so much, Cheryl, for all your work. All right. That brings us to future agenda items. Is there anything that you would like to bring up at our next regularly scheduled meeting, which I believe is September 1st? I had two things. So revisiting the subcommittees. So if anyone has any, changes that they'd like to make, you can do that over the summer. And then also, Greg, last meeting, you had sort of mentioned this idea of a study group for school choice. And so perhaps now, this current year would be the time to implement that. Perhaps we will have a discussion and we'll decide to do something else, but that could be a future agenda item. Anyone else? All right.
Does it start in September with the budget goals and stuff like that? And the budget, does that start right in September?
Yes,
Okay.
It does. So we'll definitely need to be doing that as well.
Yeah.
Thank you, Kelly. Keith?
We start getting some school improvement plans in maybe not September, Greg, but pretty soon, right?
Yeah, I think after the next scheduled meeting of whatever, September 1st, and then I believe probably early October, the building principals will be prepared to share their school improvement plans. I'll just two comments too. Although I don't think we'll need a summer meeting in August to launch the school year, I will keep the committee informed if that is the case. And the other piece of information is just that we will be scheduling a school committee workshop with our school committee colleagues in Southborough and the region. And part of that work will really be to looking at our budget goals and talking about some of the work that we want to accomplish in the upcoming year.
Thank you.
And Lauren?
Yes, Joan.
I have another suggestion. As a liaison to the Northborough Educational Foundation, I think it might be beneficial to have them come to one of our meetings, and maybe even in September. We hear from the PTOs of each school when they that school makes the school improvement plan. But I think maybe in September, that might be a nice kickoff because at that point they'll be asking, teachers for grants or something, or they could highlight some of the grants that will be going on in the 2021-2022 school year.
Great idea, Joan. Thank you. And Keith, I saw your hand up.
Yes. Now I'm trying to remember what it was, because Joan's idea was so good. It was.
And we're going to be back in person?
Yes, that was what it was.
The location, maybe?
Place, yes. Yeah. Are we at the present time anticipating an in-person Melican was our last tentative discussion meeting in September.
So as we all know, June 15th is the lifting of the emergency order, with the exception of remote meetings. September, the ability to have open meetings via remote participation has been extended to September 1st. But I do intend that we'll be back in person this fall with our school committee meetings. And I know that Keith and I had discussed around how do we create a hybrid model so that, again, we capture the number of participants that we've had over the course of this year through remote participation. So we will work on a solution for that.
Thank you. And one additional thing is, will we need to meet this summer to rescind our policies that we put in place regarding COVID restrictions?
I think they're written in a way that allows us to move forward without rescinding the policy, but I think that will be something we'll want to do early on in September.
Okay, thank you. All right, so we have a lot to get back to in September, but it sounds good because a lot of this is normal, business as normal. So it'll be good to see that in September. All right, that brings us to approval of bills and payrolls, which is happening electronically these days. And then last but not least is audience sharing, and we have 0 attendees. So it looks like no one is wishing to share this evening. So I will look for a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion, Kelly Gannett, to adjourn.
Great. We have a motion by Kelly, a second by Erin, and this will be a roll call vote. Mrs. Frank?
Yes.
Mrs. Gannett?
Yes.
Mrs. Tagliaferri?
Yes.
Mr. LaBelle?
Yes.
And myself, Mrs. Bailey Jones, is a yes. So we are adjourned at 9:28 p.m. Thank you so much, everyone, for your work this school year. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.